And welcome back to another episode of the Swandingo Files. Your host, Stephen Swanson, the Dango HO Baby. And my guest is Christine Walker, the of Devil Doc Publishing. How's it going today, Christine?
It's going great. It's great to be here.
I hope you like that Dango HO Baby. So
Sure, sure.
something a little bit new here. So so we're just gonna talk about your military service, why you joined. We all have our own stories, and then what you did while you're in, your transition and difficulties coming out and getting used to normal life on the outside. And then we all know you had got a magazine, so we want to talk about that, of course.
Yeah.
So why did you join the military?
So, I joined the military because it was just the thing to do in our family. I had 14 members in my family who served, um,
Oh,
from my great grandfather in World War One to both my grandfathers and my great aunt in World War Two, and then she was a flight nurse, in the Army Air Corps because there was no Air Force at the time. So she served as flight nurse in World War II and the Korean War, and she was the only living female to receive the Distinguished Flying Cross
wow.
here in
That's
Korea.
awesome.
So, and then my uncle served in the Navy. My stepdad was Navy. My dad was Air Force. My brother's a Marine. My great uncle was killed at Iwo Jima, um, and he was a Marine. So, yeah. So it was like normal. Just like, it was just, to me, it was like trade school, college, military, you know? And then, of course, I'm a Gen Xer. So we're like, well, let's just go in the military. So that's what I did.
Yeah, that's pretty cool though that you have so many family members that served the country before, so you have a long bloodline of patriotism
Oh,
and
yeah.
honor and duty to this country. So
Yeah. Patriotism wasn't discussed because it was just how it was. You know what I
that's
mean?
yeah, that's very understandable. I mean, it's just well, as an American, I mean,
Right,
personally, I think you should just have patriotism. You shouldn't
right.
even sway in any other way, but love your country.
Exactly. Love of country, right?
Yeah,
But yeah, so it wasn't a big deal. I mean, it was a big deal, but it wasn't something that, um, I had to be taught. It was just, and of course, I'm kind of the mama bear of the veterans now. Damn it, I'm 51. So, I served during Desert Storm. In fact, I was actually in boot camp when Desert Storm started. So I'll share
wow.
that in a bit. But yeah, it was just, but I actually remember going down to maps, and it was very different then. Um, I drove myself. Like, I didn't have a recruiter with me. They just said, be here at 0800. You're going to take your test. You're going to have your physical. And, if you pass your ASVAB and the scores are good, um, we'll go ahead and swear you in. And I'm like, okay. So I drove myself to downtown Denver, which is where I lived in Lakewood, a suburb of Denver. So I drove to downtown Denver and, took my ASVAB, had my physical, did all that, and by the afternoon I was sworn in. And
Wow.
so it wasn't in a room with like 12 other people or 20 people. It was in a little tiny, and I mean tiny, office with, two guys and another girl and myself. And they came in and they told us to stand up, raise our right hand. But when I took that oath, man, did it mean something. Even at 18, it meant something. And that was it. So there we are. That's and lo and behold, I was in the Navy.
Yeah, I think I remember the oath, and I was like, "What did I just do?
Mhm.
Oh crap!" So,
Right,
well, I mean, I had to join. I didn't have a well, I didn't have to, but it's either that or who knows where I'd be right now. I definitely want to be where I'm at now.
right.
It it gave me a bunch of values and everything, and got me straight and narrow in the right direction. And 14 and a half years later, I mean, I'm medically retired, but I mean, I, day one, it was just like so scary. It's like I don't even know what I'm doing right now. So, so
Well,
what did you do? Oh, sorry.
the advantage I had was my brother was actually active duty Marine Corps.
Oh,
So
okay.
at the same time. So now it was like I was in delayed entry. So I took the oath in November and then I was delayed entry till the end of December to actually go to boot camp. But my brother was active duty Marine. So for me, it was like, okay, no big deal. Boot camps, 8, 9 weeks, whatever it was. And it's like, okay, that's short, then A school, then, off to duty station. And I actually went in as a reservist. And, but at the time, Desert Shield was going on. So I didn't really pay attention to I mean, I knew it was going on, but I didn't really pay attention to it because, you know, honestly, I was like, well, isn't that kind of why we joined the military? Is, isn't that kind of the point? But I didn't had no idea what my mother was going through. Can you imagine? We're on the brink of war, and now both her kids are in the military. So yeah, it was something else. But yeah, I I loved it. I loved boot camp.
How'd your mother fare through this?
Probably through a lot of prayer. A lot of prayer. And, Desert Storm was like we were in, we were out. I mean, it wasn't long. It was, a few weeks. So there was that. And I was in boot camp. It was January 17th, 1991. And it was the day before my 19th birthday.
Wow.
And Desert Storm started. And I remember my company commanders, because in boot camp we have Navy has company commanders. And so I remember them, both of them coming in, and it was dark. It was, of course, January, and probably 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night. And they both came in wearing sunglasses. And I'm like, what kind of voodoo crap is this? And then, and they weren't mean, they weren't yelling at us. They were just like, hey, this is what's going on. We need to tell you. A bunch of the girls in our company, because I'm in a squad bay, an open bay barracks of, freaking 90 women, 80 women, whatever it was. And a lot of them start crying. And I kind of got pissed with that. I did. I kind of got pissed off. But again, I come from a long line of military. So maybe that's why. Maybe it's because my brother was a Marine. Maybe I don't know. But I kind of got pissed off and I wasn't crying. Like I literally, that was the moment when I'm like, okay, this is why we're here. And so a lot of the women were crying. And I remember my company commander, my chief, she's like, Walker, you know, why aren't you, falling down in tears, kind of. And I'm like, well, ma'am, isn't this why we're here? And I was just I wasn't being sarcastic. I was just, isn't this why we're here? And, you know, and so my brain at that point really kicked into high gear. And then they shaved off a week of our training, our boot camp training. So instead of doing all the, because Navy's big on tradition and form, and doing a lot of the I guess for Army and Marine Corps would be field, but the grinder, being on the grinder and doing all the gun, stuff, and the marching, and wearing the traditional calf covers,
Mhm.
over your boondockers and your God, what are they called? Anyway, so yeah, I was just like, okay, isn't that why we're here? So they kind of sped up our boot camp so we could get to RA school. So that's one of my memories.
So, what'd you do in the Navy?
I was a hospital corpsman.
Oh, cool.
So I went directly to hospital corpsman school from boot camp. because all leaves were canceled, obviously. And so I showed up in uniform, and then I got yelled at when I got to Great Lakes, because I went to boot camp in Orlando, and then had to go to Great Lakes. There was a blizzard, and the van didn't pick me up from base. So I flew into Chicago, went to the USO, said, hey, I'm here. Can a van come get me? Or I thought they'd be there. Oh, nobody's here. So they called the base and they're like, well, it's a blizzard. Nobody's going. I'm like, well, crap. I have to get to base. I have like literally 3 hours to check in before I'm AWOL. So I'm like, well, I guess I take a cab. So I got in this frigging cab in Chicago, and it's on a good day, it's an hour drive, right? So I'm in this cab in uniform with this Middle Eastern dude, and I'm like, all I have is the cash on me. I have nothing else. Thank God I had that cash. So he drops me off, and it's like the cab ride was like $120. And this was 1991, right? And I'm like, okay. So it was literally all I had. So I gave him the money. I went into the guard shack, and I'm like, okay, I'm here. And I hand them my orders. And they're like, why are you here? And I'm like, I don't know, because I'm going to A school here. I wasn't flippant, but I was kind of annoyed. And they're like, oh, we weren't expecting you to tomorrow. And I'm like, well, I'm here now. They're like, well, you're not supposed to be in uniform. And I'm like, and I just came from boot camp, dude. And he goes, what? I said, I literally was on a bus from boot camp to the airport, got on a plane, flew here. I have no civilian clothes. And they're like, oh, oh. So anyway, long story short, they finally got me settled and got me in my class. But yeah, I was a corpsman. So that was fun, that was fun.
Oh,
Um,
that's funny. I like that story. It's just like you seem like you're such a go-getter, and your head chart or you charge right in with your head down and just don't care about what's going on around you. So I don't know too many people that would just jumped in a cab and been like, okay, so let me
well,
get
I
there.
was like, shit, I have to be there. I think I was more afraid of the Navy and what they do to me if I didn't
Hmm.
show up on time. So, my brother, Marine, adapt and overcome. And I'm like, well, okie dokie, I guess I'm gonna spend all my money. Well, I did put in a chip because they were supposed to pick me up. Somebody dropped the ball.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, how'd you get here? I'm like, I took a cab in a blizzard in my uniform, you know, and they're like, oh, okay, well, put in a chit and we'll reimburse you. I'm like, yeah, you better reimburse me my $120.
Yeah, $120 back then was a lot to eat.
Like,
Well,
250, $300 today, right?
if
But
if not more.
yeah, so anyway, yeah, it sucked. And then I get to the barracks, the berthing, which is the old, like pre-World War II hospital, and I was on the ninth floor. And because I was at A school, you can't take the elevators, you have to climb all those steps. Thank God I was in really good shape from boot camp. So I got up there with my sea bag, had no civilian clothes, and ended up, you know, catching a rack and catching some sleep for about 3 hours. And then I was up, and thank God for youth, because I could not do it today.
I'm right there with you. I'm only 38, but no, I was a scout in the army, so you know, it's just wear and tear for deployments, and I'm just plus a little fun tour in South Korea, and
Right.
yeah, I just yeah, I think just the last like 5 years, I just feel my body just like it's time, bro. It's time
Oh
to
yeah.
start cooling it down and taking a break. And it's like, but I got 6 kids at home. I can't take a break. No,
Right.
that ain't happening. So I got to keep charging forward.
Yeah.
So
So school was good. It was fast, learned a lot, but you know what's funny? I still remember certain things
mm,
very, very vividly about school. So, if you had a giving chest wound, I can save your life with a credit card. Don't ask
uh,
me. Yeah.
I
It's
didn't know that was, so when I was in, we had all the new fancy stuff. So there was no, yeah,
Yeah,
tricks.
we were old school. So
Yeah.
old school. Like we literally were taught the same thing that like they were taught, corpsmen were taught back in Vietnam.
Okay.
So it was a
Wow.
very, very different corpsman training.
Yeah, it
But
sounds like it.
so, and then got through school, and then I got brother, sister duty. My brother was at Lejeune, and I got stationed at the Camp Lejeune Naval Hospital there. So, and then literally 3 weeks after I arrived, he's off on deployment.
Mm,
So pretty much the whole time I was in at Lejeune, my brother was deployed.
well, that
I'm like,
sucks.
well, that was dumb because I could have gone to Pendleton and gone 8404, which is the only place they had the 8404 billets open for female corpsmen. So I'm like, well, crap. So, but it was okay. You know, Camp Swampy wasn't that bad.
I don't know. Now everybody's getting sick out or getting sick from all the whatever it was out there.
Oh, the
So
water. Yeah,
yeah.
that was like literally a year after I was there. So,
Oh,
so the cutoff date was 89 and I arrived in 91. So,
of course.
of
Of
course.
course.
But no,
So
it's good. And here's the funny part. So, you get to your duty station and typically you're giving like billeting or your barracks, you're assigned your room and your barracks and that kind of thing. Oh no, 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 no. They did not have any barracks. So open, available. So I got per diem to live off base
really,
from day one. Like I never slept on base ever.
wow, that's lucky.
So but it kind of sucked. I had no car. So I had to go get a car and it was a piece of crap. And, it's like, yeah.
So how many years did you do?
I was only in for 2 because by the time Desert Storm ended, and then that was like the early 90s, like 1992 is when they really started um, downsizing the military. They were like forcing retirements and because I had gone in, now I went in reservist, but I went active duty during A school. But because I went in as a reservist, they're like, oh, check her off the list. She's gone,
Mm,
So I'm like, crap, because I literally went in expecting to make a career out of it. So, but
too bad they didn't let you stay in then. You seem like you would have been a great leader at some point.
yeah, I mean, if they would have let me stay in, I would have just gone to Pendleton and gone 8404 and done that. But I love serving with the Marine Corps. And, corpsmen are kind of weird because once you serve with the Marine Corps, you kind of are your own little tiny entity of the military. You're not really Navy. People are like, oh, tell me about the Navy. I'm like, I can't. I don't know anything about the Navy. They have boats and ships. That's what I know about the Navy.
Oh, that's
And
funny.
they're like, what? They're like, no, I serve with the Marine Corps. You want to know about the Marine Corps? I can tell you about the Marine Corps. So, yeah.
That's funny. So when did you start looking at transitioning out and everything? Like, when did you know you were going to be done with the, well, Navy/Marines?
I didn't know I was going to be discharged until about 2 weeks before I was.
Wow.
So they kind of informed, I got a letter. Sorry, I've got a eyelash that's
Are
bugging me.
you're okay.
I got a letter from my command basically saying, hey, because you came in as reservist and we're downsizing the military right now, because you're a low rank, we have to let you go. Thank you for your service. Your discharge date is this. And I'm like, well, crap. So I had to move. I had all that because I had per diem and I had a car and all that. So they ended up, I went on my date, which was funny enough, June 12th. I don't know if you know about June 12th. June 12th is like the new Women's Veterans Day. It signifies the date that Eisenhower signed into law the ability of women to serve full time in the military.
I actually did not know that, honestly.
Back in 48. So anyway, yeah, it's like, oh, of course it was on June 12th. so
The
I
day they get rid of you.
Yeah, so I went to get my pay and my per diem for my move and my DD 214, and basically, had a nice kick in the butt and have a nice life. That was it.
Jesus. So
There
2
were no
weeks out.
transition services.
Wow. So 2 weeks, that's all you had. So,
Yep.
I mean, what did you do? Like once you were out, and did you go back home?
Oh yeah, I had to, because I didn't have anybody in North Carolina. I wasn't married. I didn't have kids. So yeah, I packed up my stuff and moved back to Colorado, where I was originally from. And I don't remember exactly. I was mad. I remember I was pissed. And
Understandably.
yeah. And I remember that I was annoyed because, I think when I first got back, I went and saw a recruiter about going back in the military, like a different branch. And they're like, oh, well, you just got out and they're downsizing, so we're not taking anybody. They're like, but check back in 4 years, you know? And so anyway, yeah, that was my military service, and my transition took 30 years. So
Well, I was a prior recruiter, and I recruited under Obama, and there was a lot of people that they were getting letters and everything and getting the acts, and they try to come back in. It's like, we're not taking any prior service right now, unless you hold like a super special skill, which was mostly
right.
linguistics, mostly, which is very rare. So yeah, I understand how that is, and I felt bad for a lot of people, and then people with just dumb stuff or too big of a tattoo couldn't get in. It's just like, jeez.
Right.
But
Yeah.
so
So I kind of became like a hippie. I did. I just kind of went from school to school and job to job, and just kind of, trying to find my way, and, moved to San Diego with the boyfriend that I had met in A school, and that the relationship didn't work out, but I fell in love with San Diego. And so lived there off and on for 14 years, and then went into the nonprofit. And about that time, San Diego was getting really expensive, but I was in San Diego when 9/11 happened. So it was kind of a weird place to be. I almost went back to a recruiter, but
you think they would?
I had a really good job. I was working, I was head of security at a pharmaceutical company.
Oh
So
wow.
I had a really great job. I'm like, do I want to go back in the military? No, I do not. So at that time in my life, I had a really good corporate job. So
That's
and
good.
yeah, but it was weird because it was San Diego. So on 9/11, it's like every plane was up from Miramar, from, the aircraft carriers were all the ships were out.
Hmm.
They all had an emergency, so they were out. All the fighters were up. Um, Yeah, it was crazy. And then of course that night, my roommate at the time, she was a Marine. And so we were sleeping. We lived way in Escondido. I worked in La Jolla, so it was only an hour and a half drive one way. And we were sleeping, and it was like 9/11. We were super upset. We went to bed late. And then all of a sudden around 3 in the morning, we just hear this rumbling. And we're like, crap. And so she's literally like, both of us flew out of bed. I ran out the back door because our back air patio faced the street. She ran out the front door and went out to the street where our condo was. And I look outside and nothing. It was nothing. It was an earthquake. But I swear to God, we both swore. It's like, that feels like tanks. No, it wasn't. So,
No.
yeah.
That's funny.
So,
So so then okay, so you're working at the security agency.
mhm.
How long did you work
Oh,
there
no,
for then?
I was the security coordinator for the pharmaceutical company.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And so what made you are you're not still working for them, are you?
No, 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 no. No, I haven't worked for them for decades.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
when I got out of the military, I was like, okay, I'll go. First, I went to floral design school, and I'm like, no, there's too much drama. I don't like drama. I don't like gossip. I don't like any of that. So, I'm like, no, that is not the industry for me. And then I went to the Texas Peace Officer Academy. I'm like, well, I'll just go be a cop. That seems like a good, transition from military and whatever. So I went through the Texas Peace Officer Academy, graduated, passed my T-close exam, and then I was offered a job at this pharmaceutical company in San Diego. So back to San Diego I go, and so I was in charge of all the security there.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing. So well, I mean, it didn't seem like it took you too long to figure out life and start making, making moves. But what made you start your magazine though, At Ease?
So fast forward 20 years. um, I over the years I had taught myself graphic design, and I was kind of a novice writer, but so I had been had a couple companies, started entrepreneurship, had a couple companies that I was um, doing graphic design, building websites, and this is like old school websites. This isn't like the stuff they have today. And so I was doing that, and then I just needed a change. I was in the nonprofit world, and I'd done that for a decade, and I just needed a clean slate. So I moved. I was back in Texas, and I moved to a bigger city south of where I was living, and started another new company. Was doing okay, and then my mother moved down, and she's older, so she moved to a little town outside of where I was, the town I was living in. So eventually, I moved to the same town because she needed me close, and my brother was back and forth. Sometimes he was there, sometimes he wasn't. So I moved to this little town and ended up getting a job at the local small newspaper and fell in love with publishing. Um, and so fell in love with the editor was a real curmudgeon. Like, he literally was your typical editor. I mean, think Daily Planet, you know. And he was a jerk, but he had a lot of knowledge. And so I kept my head down and I gleaned everything I could. And then a friend of mine started our own little publishing company, doing kind of a community magazine. And it was great, but it wasn't going anywhere. We weren't expanding. We weren't. She lived in the community where the magazine was. I didn't. And it just got to a point where I'm like, I'm kind of done, with this. This isn't lucrative. This isn't paying my bills. This isn't whatever. So 2020, and, COVID hit, And I come up with a brilliant idea. Let me start my own publishing company and my own magazine during the middle of a pandemic. Let's do that. Because I can't do anything easy. Everything has to be uphill. So I did. So I went to my partners and my business partners, and I said, you know what, this isn't doing it for me. You guys are all over the place. I really love publishing. I really love what I'm doing, but they were kind of treating me like an employee, not a partner. And I just got to the point where it's like, no, I'm kind of done with that. And it's like, I really want to do something bigger, something that's going to leave a legacy. So I started Double Duck Publishing. Double Duck is a term of endearment to corpsmen who served with Marines. Even though I wasn't 8404, it was a wink and a nod to my fellow corpsmen. So, and my Marines. So, and then I started Addie's Veterans Magazine. So it was supposed to be a little county regional magazine. And I had so many veterans reaching out to me, asking me, can you duplicate it? Have you thought about going national? And so I kind of took a month before I ever published an issue and kind of reworked my business model to see what I could do. And the next thing I know, I'm launching a national magazine. And then in March of 21, our first issue came out.
Wow.
So
So who can where do you get your stories from? Are they just submitted or do you
yeah, so
reach out?
we have staff writers, we have feature writers, we have contributing writers, and really, honestly, people come to me all the time. And I just write it down. I'm like, okay, we can do that in summer, we can do that in spring. And it's gone from our first issue. Our first issue is this one. And so we're in print and we're in e-magazine. And this is my great aunt. So I told her story. And as you can see, it's very small. It was, 40 pages, full color, nice magazine, but so that was our first issue, our inaugural issue. And now our magazine is 80 pages. Perfect.
So you doubled.
Huh?
So you doubled.
Yeah, we doubled in content. Yeah. So, and that's what we do now. So, and we tell stories. I mean, we've got DD 214 and beyond, we've got military history, we've got veteran stories, we've got transitioning, articles, VA articles, people who are really in the know with VA stuff. We've got opinion pieces. We do a lot with, mental health, PTSD. We have physical fitness in there. We've got funny stories, like, because we have dark humor. So, and we're the only veterans magazine that is 100% written by vets for vets.
Awesome.
So when we write, I'm not writing to civilians. I don't water it down. We don't tie it up with a pink bow. We're kind of unfiltered. So we don't edit out language or, difficult battle, descriptions or anything like that. So yeah.
Nice. I like that. And so many people want to kowtow to what is it? Being
Politically correct.
yes, thank you. And it's just like we're so done with that. Just come on. Let's drop it.
Well, at the risk of being a little political, we are probably a very non-woke publication. So, because in my humble opinion, as vets, we've got a backbone. We're not offended by much. And and if we don't agree with something, it's cool. We can agree to disagree. And that's really where it goes. So
So if somebody wants a story published, where do they, or who do they submit, or where do they submit to?
They can email me at Christine@DoubleDogPublishing.com. Or they can do, well, that's the best one. Just email me at Christine@DoubleDogPublishing.com. And if they want the magazine, they can access it through the ateasemagazine.com. And we're getting ready to redo and zhuzh up all our websites and stuff. So we got that coming. But yeah, that's it. And it's so we're in print and we're in e-magazine.
All right. Uh, Do you read every magazine yourself, or do you just kind of put it out there, or do you actually see all content before it goes?
Yep, I am the one behind the
Whoa.
scenes doing all the editing, and I go through. I do have an editor, assistant editor, but yes, I read every story through. And then
You
my
are
assistant editor goes through and kind of makes little corrections here and there. But for the most part, we don't change the voice of the vet.
oh,
You
that's
know,
good to hear.
and I have vets who are like, "Oh, what should I write about?" I'm like, "What do you want to write about?" And they're like, "Well, what do you want to write? What do you want me to write about?" I'm like, "No, what do you want to write about?" That's why our magazine is so amazing, because I'm not dictating what people write. Like, don't get me wrong, our staff writers, yeah, I'll be like, "Hey, can you do a story on this?" I'll assign, stories and stuff. But for the most part, especially with feature and contributing writers, I don't care what you write about. You
Awesome.
know, if it's your story, if it's a story about another person, that's cool with me too. As long as you have permission to use the pictures and the likeness and the story of that person, and you can, you share that with us, because we're kind of sticklers on copyright, and we don't want to do stories about people who aren't cool with it.
Hmm.
But yeah, and we're connected with a lot of veteran organizations as well. And we're talking the ones that never get the press ever, the ones who never get in the media, the little ones that are busting their butts every damn day to provide services for vets. Those are the ones we feature. So they have to be boots on the ground. They have to
Nice.
be making a
Yeah.
tangible difference in the lives of veterans for us to cover their story. We don't cover businesses, but businesses can advertise and they can do advertorials and write their own stuff. But so that's kind of where we're at. Yeah, and we've got a lot of content.
I'm glad to hear it. So you got to be a pretty busy person. If you, how many issues do you got going out? Is it monthly or biweekly or
It's quarterly.
quarterly? Okay.
Yeah, it's just it's too big and it's too much to try to do it monthly. And
Okay.
then and then you have the issue, because we are print, it's expensive right now to print. It sucks. Our costs have gone up exponentially, which unfortunately I've had to pass along to our subscribers. But
Well, you have
but
to.
you
You
can
got to make a
subscribe.
living.
Well, yeah, we're getting there. And but more importantly, we are putting out the stories. We are creating something that is a legacy that isn't just about me. It's so much bigger than me. So, and then, so we have all kinds of content, and I love it. And I love military history, and I love sharing our veteran stories and veteran, service organizations. And I'm always trying to make connections with people. So
Right. Oh, of course you are. Besides you said your grandma, right?
mhm.
Besides her, which story do you recall as your favorite so far?
um well, I really love this last one. This one just about kicked my butt. So this is Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Scheller.
Hmm.
Do you remember who he is?
Oh, yes, I do.
Okay. So this was probably my favorite one, but it was also the hardest one to write, because he made me so nervous. And when you write about other people, you really want them to like it. I'm not a journalist. I had somebody tell me, they're like, oh, well, you're a journalist, like, we don't really trust you. And I'm like, I'm not a journalist. I'm a storyteller. That's what I do. You will never, as long as I am at the helm of this magazine, there will never, ever, ever be a story about a vet that goes out that is derogatory or demeaning, ever, ever. And so, especially if I'm writing it. So, yeah. I mean, I love my Aunt Janita's story, don't get me wrong, but I really am proud of the Stuart Scheller cover. So,
Yeah.
but,
Excuse me. Well, it sounds like you're doing amazing things, and I'm glad you're giving a true voice to the vets and not just watering it down to fit the media narrative. You got your own
oh yeah,
narrative of let's tell the truth and tell their story.
yeah.
So,
And I mean, when I say vets, I mean all vets,
mhm.
whether it's women or, even controversial subjects like, January 6th defendants, we cover them. We've been doing a story called Voice for the Voiceless since spring of 21 or 22. And, we give them a voice too. And, we're not here to jump on the bandwagon and say whatever, but we're just here to say, you know what, they're veterans and they damn well deserve a voice too. So we give a voice to everybody, all vets.
That's good, and I'm glad to hear it. And so, are you guys just order online, or can you find them in stores or?
Not yet. We're working towards that goal,
Okay,
but right now it's just online. So if people want to subscribe, and we have two options: you can pay annually, or you can pay monthly. So it's
okay,
just $7 a month, and you'll get one of these beautiful. And actually, this is kind of a luxury coffee table magazine. It's heavy.
yeah,
Like
it
this
looks like it.
magazine is probably weighs about